Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. How's the day going? Everyone seen some really interesting things so far? Are you all here just today or for the week, for the whole 3 days? 3 days, great. I haven't seen anything yet. I really want to go around. So, welcome to Diversity Rules. I'm here doing a quick talk around, I guess, what's the benefit of having diversity in tech? So my name's Amali de Alwis. I'm the CEO from Code First Girls. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, we're an organisation that focuses on getting more women into tech and entrepreneurship. And we do this in a few different ways. We help the young women. So we actually run free coding courses for women across the UK through universities, as well as some who are fresh graduates in London as well. Last semester we had over 300 women learning how to code. We teach web development, we teach Ruby, we do Python, we do masterclasses in anything from iOS app development to APIs. So it keeps us busy. And then we work with companies as well, because I think helping obviously the young women is only one part of the equation. So actually we work with companies, we help them to understand how you can actually get more women into tech roles, and then actually help them to, if they need to, run courses within house as well around sort of coding to help them sort of upskill their younger staff and be more versatile across the levels as well. So I'm getting very warm up here. Let's put this one down. I guess our sort of journey into understanding diversity really came to a head sort of when I came into role earlier this year. And, diversity doesn't just mean talking about women. It means just talking about anyone who works slightly differently to the way that most of your staff work. And so we actually got together with Monster recently, and we did 2 workshops this week looking at actually recruiting tech talent and retaining tech talent. And I really just wanted to share, I guess, a few of those insights with you, and get your thoughts as well on which of those things might be more relevant to your businesses, and really to start the conversation around what people can do, but more importantly than just even start conversing about it, actually start pulling away some actions. So we ran 2 sessions, as I mentioned, earlier this week. The first one, which was looking at recruitment, and it was really looking at sort of, I guess, 5 stages of how a company goes through their recruitment process. And I just wanted to kind of, I guess, talk through some of those and some of the things that we found from talking to the 2,000 plus young women who we have as part of our community, as well as all the other organisations who we've worked with as well. So if we start off with, I guess, the specifying the role. So how do you actually do a job spec, and what do you do, and how does that process work? It's one of those things where it's probably the section which people spend the least amount of time on. And we've all done it. You copy and paste job specs from previous roles, you're in a rush, you don't really get a chance to sort of chat properly to people about what the requirements are. But actually this really sets the tone for everything else which goes on afterwards. And it's one of those things where, we've been looking at some research recently, and I think it was the Centre for Economics and Business Research, the CEBR, found that you're probably looking at around £25,000 to £35,000 if you want to recruit and replace a person. That's the average cost to a business. So this is why perhaps it's worth taking an extra half hour, 1 hour, sit down with people and actually have a think about, look, what do we want to get for this? What is our sort of minimum viable person for this? And actually, what are we willing to do to maybe widen that opportunity as well out to people who we might not have considered before? So some of the things that we were thinking about was, actually, a lot of you have probably heard of the term, minimum viable product. Actually, can you think about minimum viable person? What is the basic that you need to perform this role? And actually really think about what else you've got in that team. Do you have people who are willing to mentor, people who are willing to coach, people who are willing to actually take someone under their wing? Is there training that you can offer to actually get people up to speed? And when you're talking about developers specifically, actually people are really talented. They like to learn. They like to develop themselves. So actually, if you don't have necessarily one of the languages which you were looking for, might another substitute with the proviso that actually, if people are willing to work to it and actually do some work on their own, that actually that's fine as well. So really sort of, thinking about that role more widely. Things like, can the job be done with 2 people rather than 1? Can you offer part-time working? Can you actually think about the types of wording that you look around as well? And we'll go on to this in a minute as well. But really sort of thinking about, in the wider sense of possible, what can you be doing to actually get this role to be the most inclusive role possible? So going on to the second point, which is really looking at the communication part. And I think this really ties into, I guess, the brand positioning and the brand values and how you kind of communicate that through your brief as well. So we have companies who come to us every week saying, okay, I'm looking for a, I don't know, JavaScript developer, SQL developer, whatever. I put this spec out. I've had 0 women applying. What am I doing wrong? And we sit down and we actually have a chat with them. And often you find that it's not that they're necessarily institutionally have some sort of issues with them. It's just that they're not necessarily communicating what they actually stand for in the right way. So language can be a really important thing. For anyone who likes to use terminologies like ninja or superstars or rock stars or, hitting the ball out of the park and sports analogies, they may not work with everyone. They might not resonate amongst different genders. They might not resonate across different types of cultural backgrounds. So actually, the people that we've spoken to who do this most successfully do a couple of things. So they might write a spec themselves. They actually sit down with their tech team and get them to write a spec, and then get someone else who's actually maybe in their comms team to actually look it through and actually see how they can look at that language to see how are we actually including the most people possible into this. If we go on to then finding people, so this is really about, I guess, sort of approach and channel strategy. We live in a really fragmented media landscape, and for people who are putting out job specs, it's tough to know where do you actually put things out, whether you go in the Stack Overflow direction, do you go LinkedIn, do you go Mumsnet, do you put it onto jobs boards, on other things, Monster, Talent Bin. And the thing is, it's one thing to actually put something out and be active about, actually allowing people to come and see what you're about, but it's another thing to be active actually to go out and see people. So the people who we speak to who actually do this really successfully go to meetups. They go and hang out at conferences and speak to people. So if you're not already sort of including, I guess, a more proactive approach to how you go and recruit people, that's another thing to sort of think about as well. And it's a challenge, especially when you've got small companies where resources are limited, or even big companies where you've just got so much load. It's about sort of balancing that with the time and the resources that you have. But it's worth it. It's worth it because you actually get to meet the people in the environments that they're actually living in and working in, and that way you actually get to understand more about the way that they think about the roles and actually have a conversation rather than just putting out something and just hoping that it sticks. And the last 2 points, we've got selecting the right person. Now, this is always a tough one to balance because, all of us know that it's always easy to just go for the person that you feel, okay, our previous role was filled by Jeff in IT. Actually, if we look for another Jeff, that's going to do the role. That could work, but the reality is that in today's landscape, people are really hard to find, and money's difficult, and budgets are difficult, and everyone wants tech talent. I think Tech City UK looked at some research recently which showed that by 2017, we're probably looking at another 750,000 tech workers needed in the UK. That goes up to about 1 million tech workers by the time we hit 2020. So in a really competitive landscape, if you're only looking at one certain type of person, are you actually going to get the variety of people that, number one, can actually fill the role, and number two, actually create a business which is fit for your future as well, how you want to grow? If you look at, let's say, gender alone, 80% of purchasing decisions are made by women. If you don't have any women devs in your team, are you really understanding the kind of processes that people are going through when you're creating your products as well? So this is really about how do you appraise people, how do you actually think about the different types of psychological behaviors as well. So some people might feel more confident. How do you actually make sure that people who are quiet actually get to come through in that interview process as well? And I think working across your teams, so whether that's working with your HR functions, but also with the talent teams themselves, to understand, look, what are the types of personality we have in the teams, what are the types of skills that we have in the team, and trying to sort of offset those as best as you can. Because actually you can actually find them really amazing people if you're willing to consider something a bit more widely, which might then actually add to your team sort of going forward as you build into the future as well. And I think just the last point is around the offer negotiation. So I think probably all of you have heard the research which talks about women being not quite as good at negotiating at salaries for their own benefit than they are as men are. And it's not just women. Different cultures have different sort of attitudes towards negotiation as well. Some are very hierarchical. Others might feel just uncomfortable with talking about money within a sort of a work environment. All of those sort of factors come into it. And I think it's one of those things where, as a company, as a developer as well, you need to think more carefully, and we all need to think more carefully how we actually balance that out. Some research which was done by the Oxford University Career Centre looked at their graduates. So these are super, super bright graduates, straight out of uni, very little work experience. They found that men, for example, the average salary was about 25 grand. For women, that was about 21 grand. And that's with literally zero kind of work experience to show for it. So this is the kind of thing you're facing. And, as companies, what can we do? What role can we play to try and make sure that even at the start of people's careers, that we're actually just leveling the ground that people are playing on? Because otherwise, those differences then compound as you go through people's careers as well. And understand that it's not only the people who are really vivacious and really sort of charismatic that actually deserve sort of higher pays and better deals. Sometimes it's the quieter ones as well. They may not always ask for it. I'm not saying that, all of us can afford to go and throw money at people. But just think carefully about the way that you actually evaluate what it is that, warrants, that extra pay or that extra benefit or that sort of thing as well. So that's really my 5 points. I do have, we did a second session, which is around retention. I won't go through that now because we do have obviously limited time. But that's really sort of talking about how people are onboarded into a team, how you can make people feel sort of more comfortable, continued learning. So again, especially for developers, actually how do you continue to support people through their learning programs? And some of that might be outside of the company as well. Then performance and promotion, how do you value people? How do you actually promote people? How do you actually look at how they perform across the year? And then this idea around saying thank you, as well as the little things that you can do, the lifestyle versus money benefits, as well as the warning signs and monitoring as well. So all of us know, the economic landscape has been pretty choppy over the past recent years. Things change, people stick in jobs because they're feeling comfortable there, and then suddenly the economy starts to pick up and they start to run around. How do you actually monitor those kind of movements? How do you actually see what the health of your workforce is like and actually keep an eye on how things are changing and anticipate some of the issues that you might have as well? So those are the other little bits that we cover. I do have some printouts which we've still got left over from the other sessions. You're very welcome to come and take some of them. And if you'd like to have a chat, feel free to email me, info@codefirstgirls.org.uk. You can drop us a line there, and we'd be very happy to share some more. Thank you very much.